Welcome to Global Movies Recap.
At the beginning of the film, we see Laura Burney, a beautiful woman, and her husband, Martin Burney, a successful investment counselor, relaxing on the beach. They appear to be an ideal couple. She is lovely, and he is handsome as well. Martin owns a magnificent seaside property where they are staying. Laura is getting ready for a social gathering in the evening, but they don't spend much time there. We observe their eyes locked repeatedly at the party, suggesting that something odd is going on in their minds, and when they return home, Martin plays music. He enjoys listening to Berlioz's Symphony Fantastique. Then they both get close. The next day, we watch Martin working out, which suggests that last night's workout was insufficient. After this, he finds misplaced towels in the bathroom and invites Laura there, reminding her not to make the same mistake again. Afraid of the consequences, she begins precisely aligning everything in the house, as Martin likes it. She then tells him the menu for supper and he leaves the house to see the person who has a yacht in the sea in front of their house. The man says that Laura is a really attractive woman, and he keeps staring at her all day. They then begin talking about sailing because Martin loves it, but Laura is terrified of the sea and dislikes sailing. The owner of the yacht offers him an invitation to sail, but he denies it. Later, when Martin returns home, he is extremely unhappy with the fact that the guy was watching Laura. In frustration, he begins thrashing Laura like an animal, and then abruptly feels guilty for his actions. Isn't this strange? He then informs Laura of the sailing invitation and assures her that he will always be there for her and walks away, leaving Laura in pain. Martin is an obsessive person who physically and mentally abuses Laura on a daily basis. The scene turns and we find Laura outside the house, where she notices several light bulbs and begins hitting them with stone, breaking them. That evening, Martin apologizes to Laura once more, but he brings her a gift this time. He also gives her a stunning red dress and showers her with flowers. He then strips Laura naked and forces her to wear the dress. She is obviously uncomfortable with this. He then forces her to allow him to get intimate with her. She is very unhappy with it, and her face says everything. The next day, they discuss Laura's desire to work in a library, but she is not permitted to do so. She mentions that she wasn't even allowed to attend her mother's funeral 6 months ago. He then tells her that they will always be together and that no one can ever separate them. After this, they start getting ready to sail over the sea. Later that night, when they are sailing, the weather gets severe. The yacht owner assures Laura that nothing will happen. Martin gives them a creepy look. Laura seems nervous as the weather worsens. The boat's jib suddenly opens up due to a huge burst of air. Martin and the boat owner do their best to keep everything under control, but Martin falls out of the boat. The yacht owner saves him, but Laura is now lost. She fell into the water. She is thrown into the water. Martin screams because he knows she can't swim. After some searching, they discover Laura's safety vest, figuring she is no more. Martin returns home, frustrated and blaming himself for the loss. He begins yelling her name. Laura's funeral is held after a few days. In a flashback, we see Laura, who survived the storm because she knew how to swim. She was actually hiding this from Martin, that she knew how to swim. She rushes to Martin's house, where she has already prepared a bag, cut her hair, and flushes her engagement ring. She then rushes away from the house. Laura is now on a bus heading towards Cedar Falls, Iowa. On her way to Loa, she meets an old lady, and they start talking a bit. Laura reveals the story and tells her that she is going to visit her mother. So in the beginning, when she said that her mother died, it was also a lie. The bus brings her there. She is as happy as if she had been released from a prison. She rents a house there and begins renovating it. She then takes a shower and, as a symbol of her freedom, misplaces the towels. From her window, she watches on the lawn a young man named Ben Woodward, who is her neighbor, dancing outside. She starts laughing at him. On the other hand, at Martin's house, we see him walking on the shore barefooted and a broken piece of light bulb gets into his feet. He then notices that all the bulbs are broken. The scene shifts to Laura's house. She is outside plucking some fruits from trees when Ben enters and warns her that she could be arrested for stealing fruits from his lawn. He says that we can make a deal. By the way, and she replies, "I don't make deals." Later, we see Ben return to her and apologize for what he said. He then introduces himself and explains that he is a drama teacher at a nearby college. Now we see Martin is at work where he receives a call from the YWCA, a women's welfare organization. Martin is surprised when the lady on the phone mentions Laura and expresses her sympathies, as he thinks Laura has never gone to the YWCA. The lady reveals that she came here every morning to practice swimming and became a very excellent swimmer. After hearing that, Martin loses control and rushes back to the home. There, he begins searching in her room for any clue, and suddenly, he gets a cut on his hand. He goes to the washroom to wash his wound and there he finds the ring she dumped earlier in the flush. He pulls the ring out and believes Laura is still alive. Here we see Laura going to Ben's house to give him the apple pie she baked from his apples. She tells her to play any music except Burla's while having dinner, as this song reminds her of Martin. Ben acknowledges that Laura is looking for a job. He says that he can get her some work if she wants, but she denies it. She tells him that her name is Sarah Waters. While having dinner, Ben notices a wound on her head and assumes how much more terrible her past has been. The next day, Martin begins his investigation into Laura. He visits a retirement home where Laura's mother used to live. After a brief conversation, it is discovered that Laura took her mother out of the retirement home 6 months ago. The scene shifts and we see Laura getting a job in the library with Ben's support. Ben suspects that Sarah isn't her real name, and asks her for her real name. He notices this because whenever he calls her name, Sarah, she isn't directly impacted. He tells her that he loves her, but she denies it, so he leaves with a broken heart. On the other hand, Martin hires a private investigator and offers him a handsome amount of money if he can trace Laura. After a few days, when the entire town is celebrating Independence Day, Ben notices Laura and approaches her. He apologizes for his actions, to which she responds, "It's okay, we're good friends." They begin talking about their personal lives. After a while, Laura reveals that she misses her mother because she hasn't seen her in 6 months. Then we see Martin, who is standing next to Laura's mother, Chloe, who is in fact a blind lady living in a nursing home. Martin found her using his secret resources. Ben knocks on Laura's door in the evening, inviting her to a special location. He brings her to the stage, proposes to her, and sings a song for her. They both start dancing and are obviously in love. After this, they both return home and begin kissing. They are almost about to get intimate, but Laura rejects and pushes Ben away from her. The next morning, Ben's sitting sad from being rejected repeatedly. Laura approaches him and tells him about her ex-husband's abusive behavior, revealing that she had to escape from him due to his behavior. He assures her that nothing will happen to her. Later, we see him helping Laura get dressed as a guy. Then she goes to the nursing home to see her blind mother. As she approaches her mother, she starts singing a children's song that her mother used to sing for her in childhood. She then reveals to her that she left Martin and also tells her about Ben. Her mother makes sure that she stays strong and doesn't let anyone hurt her again. Martin is in the same nursing home, and he is inquiring about Laura here. Then he prepares to leave, but the lady calls him and tells him about the visitor that they had today for Chloe. He runs here and there to look for her, but there is nobody now. Now we see Martin. He goes to Chloe and claims to be a detective. He tells her that Martin is in town, and he knows Laura is alive. He inquires about Laura's whereabouts. Chloe doesn't know where to find Laura but tells him about Ben's college, where he works. Martin is about to brutally murder her, but a nurse interrupts him and he leaves. The very next day, he goes to Ben's college and humiliates a professor, but he realizes he isn't Ben and lets him go. After this, we see Martin spying on Ben when he is teaching his students in college. Later that night, Martin follows Ben and Laura, and they both go out for a trip to an amusement park. He sees them both happy and kissing each other. At this point, you can guess that a man who has brutally beaten his wife just because a stranger is watching her, what will he do now to his wife knowing that a stranger is kissing his wife who has faked her own death? At night, when Laura and Ben return home, she is having a bath and finds that the towels are lined up properly. She jumps out of the tub and begins checking the house anxiously. She checks the house and discovers that the kitchen towels are also aligned. She then opens the kitchen cupboard and is glad to see that it is messy. She then walks away and observes an open window, through which Ben is seen entering the house. She is genuinely afraid. They both eat dinner outside the house on their lawn. He kisses her before leaving. She enters the house and turns on the music player, but Martin's favorite song is now playing automatically. This shocks her. She then notices that one of the closet doors is open, and the fire alarm goes off. She sets off the fire alarm instead of turning it off. She then enters the kitchen, where everything is perfectly placed as Martin likes. She begins to cry, realizing her fears have come true. Martin appears and forcibly kisses her. Ben knocks on the door to remind her of the time to meet tomorrow. Ben breaks the door and attacks Martin. Martin overpowers him and hits him on the head, causing him to collapse on the floor in pain. Martin then shows Laura their wedding ring. Laura strikes Martin on the testes and is able to steal Martin's gun and hold him at gunpoint. Martin claims he loves her and that if she kills him, the police will definitely arrest her. She calls the cops while Martin is at her gunpoint and tells them she shot an intruder and fires Martin. He falls to the ground after she shoots him 3 times. She then approaches Martin to see if he is still alive, but Martin awakens as a Grim Reaper and attempts to shoot her again, but the gun is empty this time. Martin ends up dying due to blood loss. Laura rushes to Ben, and they cuddle each other with love while waiting for the police. The film ends here.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. I'll be back with another interesting movie recap. Until then, take care.